I was on a radio show one time. It was out of Miami. I was getting interviewed on Mormonism, and so I was, telling believers what Mormonism is, how it differs from Christianity. Then they took some calls. It's a live call-in show, and one lady called who was a Temple Mormon, and I remember at first it was reasonable talking to her, and then all of a sudden she just started babbling unreasonably, out of control, and it just not making sense. And the host and I could both tell, and at some point we could tell when it went from her to not being her anymore. Her voice didn't change, and I'm sure her head didn't spin around. I'm sure she didn't spew vomit or anything like that, like you see on TV. But at some point, we could tell it, and she kept getting louder and louder, and filibustering and interrupting us. I think we had an encounter with the demonic there.
Okay, so I was driving from here to Minnesota last year, and I stopped in Iowa to take a break, and I went into, or I was sleeping over because I had driven so far already, and I went down to the hotel restaurant to eat, and I was sitting there waiting for my food, and I talked, of course, brought up a conversation with the guy next to me. We started talking. We're like pulling our chairs over, and him and his wife and I are talking, and it was same thing, completely reasonable. And all of a sudden he started screaming at me, "How can you believe all that stuff?" Because at first he was like, "Oh, this is really interesting," and then he was like, "How can you believe that stuff? It's got to be UFOs." And he just started saying crazy UFO stuff. And he turned out he was super into UFOs. And I remember that now, that I was like, I think like something took him over then, because he completely changed his demeanor and acted really weird.